two
that
things
was
to
like
cover
amazing.
there. That's awesome and awful, depending on who you talk to. So two things.
Yeah.
Hello, folks. Hello, wrenches. Hello, service leaders, vendors, and all of the Wrench Turners Nation. Thank you for finding us on another episode of the Wrench Turners Podcast, 10 Mil Mastery Edition. It's a show where the lads and I discuss topics that are relevant to today's technicians and service leaders and vendors and our entire automotive community. On this episode, Marshall and Richard and I talk about the MPI, what it means to us, and more importantly, Marshall brings up a very interesting situation that you're about to find out. And then we discuss at length, because the discussion professionally needs to happen. Let's get into it.
And there, anyway, this guy was talking about how every year for back to school, he does this deal where somebody can, you send your student in, right? So say you got a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, and you send them in with their school ID or something similar, some kind of documentation showing they're in school. You send them in, and they don't charge them anything. They come in, they do an inspection, they throw some air in the tires, they check everything out real quick, and it's like an hour process or whatever it is, and then they're like, all right, we'll see you later, unless there's some kind of safety item that needs to be addressed. But then they send the quote for the stuff to the parents so that they have an idea of where they're at with their car. But the student can come in and they don't charge them anything. They just send them. You say, hey, swing your kid through the shop, have them swing by, and we'll give them just a quick inspection and everything, and they do it completely free. And I thought that was like amazing.
There. That's awesome and awful, depending on who you talk to. So two things there. So we've talked about this on SDL. We've talked about this. We have a little bit. We've talked about, I've seen, there's lots and lots and lots of conversation about not the concept and the principle you're talking about, like the having the kids come in, do a quick check, and then sending the quote to the parents. That's a cool idea. The challenge is the paid or not paid MPI. So this is a maintenance. This is a maintenance inspection. Fundamentally, there's no. It's cut and dry. There are people that say you should pay technicians for an inspection. And there are people who say you shouldn't pay for a maintenance inspection because it's part of the job, depending on who you talk to. And for example, John Fraser expects an MPI, a video MPI, on every single car. Doesn't matter if it has 1 mile on it or 1,000,000 miles on it. Every single car gets a video MPI, and he doesn't pay them for it. His thought process is, it's 10 minutes, but that 10 minutes does a couple things. One, it builds trust, and two, it covers liability, because the safety of the customer is the most important thing to the dealership from a trust, customer experience, and good business ethics standpoint. There are lots of other you can have the philosophical debate about what it actually means.
You can't put business ethics in there with wage theft.
Right. So there's two completely different trains of thought, and I'm not sure which one on this very thing. I'm not sure which one I stand on, because I and we've had this conversation before. I'm not entirely convinced that anyone should tell anyone else to work for free. That's effectively what it is, because he puts a line on every single work order. Right, he puts a video MPI line on every single work order, and the technicians are expected to do a video MPI every single car, period. And his statement to his techs are, if you don't put our customer safety first, you think it's optional, where do I send your toolbox to, because you don't work here? Now, the flip side of that is, he is also the same kind of leader that goes, if you're not making 3 hours a car, if you're not making $100,000 a year in my shop, I'm doing something wrong. So that's the kind of thing that he like. His mindset is to get everybody making money. He does that by being transparent with clients through safety of the video MPI. So I get both sides of that coin. I'm happy to hear, Richard.
It's one thing if so. Now hearing that portion of it, so there's two coins as the argument, right? If the shop is dead and they're demanding free work from the technicians, that's where the techs are going to push their toolboxes out the door, right? If the technicians are continually seeing a return, it's a minimal investment with a large return. That's totally different, right? So those are two different sides of the coin. If you're turning around and the shop isn't making money, you're not doing any business, then I can see the technicians being like, well, you're going to get what you pay me for, and you're going to get shit for what you're paying for, right? But if the technicians time and time again are becoming invested in the process, and they're seeing, if they're seeing an average ticket of 3 hours per RO based off of a 10-minute video, that's a whole different
Right.
concept, right? So
and that's
I mean,
from our sales standpoint of fixed ops marketing, not just the VMPA, because I like the fact that I'm capable of talking about all of it. You've got a couple different sides here. You have service advisors who don't consistently follow the process. The videos that we have with fixed ops marketing allow that sales process to be consistent. From the other side of the coin, in the shop, doing a video on every single car, you will get better at doing the video, so it takes you less time, you get consistent at it, and you see the return on the investment. Both are exactly the same thing. The challenge is, and you've seen it, I'm pretty sure all three of you've seen it, is when technicians and service advisors don't see the value of the thing they're investing in. So if you're spending 10 minutes, 15 minutes on every single car doing an MPI and you're not seeing the return, why are you going to do it? Especially if you're not getting paid for it. So,
well, hey, I mean, okay, so we invest 100K in tools over 15 years in our careers. We invest thousands of hours in our online training after hours that we don't get paid for. And then you're going to ask us, you're going to bend us over, put the line in the sand for 10 minutes. Say you look at 5 trucks a day or 5 vehicles a day, 5 of them, that's 10 minutes each. That's 50 minutes a day. You do that 5 times a week. You times that by 52. That's 208 hours that I worked for free.
Yep.
Not going to do it.
Here's the flip side of that, though, Marshall, is that if your service team, and this is where you have to have strong service management and strong service leaders, if your service team is stepping up to the plate and so you're doing 5 inspections a day, if you take those 5 inspections a day, and if your service team is selling 50% of the work that you've called, you've lost 50 minutes to make 7.5 hours. Right? If Josh is right with the average billable is 3 hours per RO. So you've taken 50 minutes out of your day and half of that sells, that's still 6 hours that
I get that.
Per day.
I get that. But the faith is that 50% of the time I'm going to take those dice and gamble them on shoes for my kids.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing every single time I do it.
You're right. But this is the challenge that a lot don't see because they don't necessarily understand the numbers for themselves. And Stefan, I know you got to go, buddy. If you got to go, peace out. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the experience, and thanks for sharing. I appreciate you. If you got to bounce. We're good. We're shooting the shit and talking. And
we're after hours now.
I'm still recording because some of this stuff can still be used. We can clip this all night.
Yeah.
So,
but
the two things that you have, there's a couple of, actually there's more than 2 things, but the 2 things that immediately come to mind, especially from the MPI, and I understand the free portion, I fucking hate working for free. When you go, look from a sales process in the service drive, you do all of your own selling, Marshall, and you try to think about outside of that coin. If you had somebody selling for you,
yeah,
okay, that person a great service advisor, like a really, really great crushing it service advisor, is closing about 40% of your upsells. That's like
Yeah.
40% is a big number. So if you're not doing MPIs and they're closing 20%, and you start doing MPIs on every car and they start closing 40% of the time. So that means you add 2 more upsells per car. Sorry, 2 more upsells per day, effectively, right? So you're going to add an average of whatever your particular store is. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 3 hours extra, whatever the case may be. You're adding that to your tally. You're doubling the you're doubling the CP, because you're not upselling warranty. You're upselling CP, right? So it's the more productive stuff, the stuff you can make more money on, the stuff that's perhaps a little bit easier. You're doing 2 other things as well, right? You're making more money flat out. So if it takes you 10 minutes and you get an extra hour and a half, your net positive is 1.4, right? 1.3, give or take. We'll call it 1.3. If you're adding 1.3 net per day, the net positive, right? So we talk about like the 80-20 rule for energy. Like the 80 as leaders, we got to give 80% positive so that when it comes to the negative portion, they're actually going to listen. Same thing goes with the free MPI. Now, if MPIs are the only thing that I would ever say is acceptable to do for free as a mechanic, ever. Like, you should get paid for everything you do.
The thing is, though, is I do 10-minute thing. You still pay me, and then we still sell it an extra 7 hours. You paid me for 50 minutes a day. I just don't see it. It doesn't add up still. It's like, dude, you can still pay me for the 10 minutes per car. It's that important for the shop's liability, right? If you're trying to sell it that way, okay, I get that. It's a shop's liability. It's my liability. But
right. That's a philosophical debate based on the leader and the owner.
Yeah,
right? Whether
that's
you
what I'm
agree
saying.
with not paying for it or paying for it doesn't matter, because every shop is going to be different. Every technician is going to be different. Every service advisor is going to be different. And in your example, your lead into this was, a service leader does every August. They say, if you're 16, 17 and going into your last year of high school and you happen to own a car, your parents probably pay for it. Come in, we'll do a free inspection and we'll send it to your parents. I can almost guarantee you they aren't paying techs to do that inspection. But because they're doing that, because year over year, the net positive is that technician in all likelihood is going to make 2.5, 3 hours from that inspection. That net positive is a win.
Yeah. But I mean, my example was mainly just drawn in work. At the same time, though, if we add in there, should the tech get paid for it? Absolutely, they should. I think. I mean,
that's a philosophical question that you're answering. Richard has one answer. I have another answer. You have another answer.
Yeah.
Every tech on the planet has a different answer based on circumstances. And it's, to me, my answer is circumstantial.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like the circumstances all come down to putting huge faith in your service advisors and the fact that you hope that your service manager is putting that line in the sand and being like, okay, if a tech comes to you with an MPI, you need to sell that work. And if you're not selling that work, there's the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how it should be. Like that.
Yeah, but how often
sell that work, right? So
if we were to just throw a random number at the wall, how often do you think that the service managers actually do that?
80-20 rule. It's your high value leader. The only people that
so 20%.
20% of the time. So the only leaders that are going to not pay for an MPI that are the only right. But this is why we preach the most important thing a mechanic has in their toolbox is having a high value leader. The only people that are going to win as a mechanic, if you're not getting paid for an MPI, you're going to continue doing it because you work for a high value leader that coaches their service advisors who are closing at 35% plus, right? Those are the series of steps. It's not just a throwing the dice necessarily at the MPI. It's the fact that a technician has now done it for, let's say, 90 days straight, because after 90 days of not getting paid to do something and not seeing any benefit of it, that's a problem. That means you probably have a poor leader, and you probably have a poor service advisor team. But the flip side is, if you've been doing it for 90 days for free and you're not complaining about it because 4 times out of 10, you're closing an extra, say, 2-3 hours per car, you have absolutely no excuse not to do it because your net positive is stupid high.
Quick pause, folks. I haven't done a pause in a while, so sorry. But remember how last week on the 10 Mil Mastery, Marshall said something pretty epic, made us all roll on the floor laughing. ROFL, we haven't actually said that in a long time. Remember what it was? Do you remember? Do you recall? Maybe I'll post a clip.
So,
I want to have a
believe in
sign
the
that
flat rate
says
world.
"Flat rate sucks. Change my mind."
Remember that? Guess what? Well, now I did a thing. So you can buy the t-shirt or you can buy the hoodie. Just got to click the link below. Just click the link below. Whether you listen to Spotify or YouTube, you just got to click the link below. Love y'all. Thank y'all. Now back to the show.
Yeah, I
That
don't know.
only works if all the
But-
processes work.
And then, like I said, though, Marshall, like techs can get shit pay, but if they have phenomenal leaders, techs will stick around because they know they'll be able to make it up on the next car, right? But if you have
I
a
don't-
shit leader, techs are gonna leave, right? So I get it, I understand it because as a flat rate technician, and I will tell you here right now, when I went from GM to Nissan, I went from a paid MPI. And then I got my first oil change at Nissan. I was like, oh yeah, put it in the air, do the oil change, do my MPI, hand the ticket in. And then I look at my pay stub. I'm like, hey, wait, that oil change only paid me 0.3. Where's my 0.2 for my MPI inspection? And I got from the advisor, I got from the service manager, oh, we don't pay for MPIs. I'm like, well, you're gonna get what you're paying for. And I did not. Like, I had a vehicle hit my hoist one time, and I grabbed the MPI sheet and I went shook lines in the green and wrote the name on it and chucked it. My service manager was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "There's what you're paying me for. You're not going to pay me to do an MPI. You're going to get what you invested into it." And then we got in the argument of, "Oh, well, they got to sell the work and stuff like that." And when I left that Nissan dealership, the average hours sold per RO were 0.89. They weren't even wasn't even an hour sold per RO because the piss poor manager at the time wasn't doing his job to crack the whip on his service advisors and sell and get them to do their job, right? So it all comes down to piss poor management. If you have a shitty manager or shitty leader, it's going to be shit flowing downhill in buckets, right?
It doesn't matter whether because the non-paid MPI is probably the least of your concerns, right?
It was.
At a store that's not even let's say you've got 4 advisors in the drive. If their average hours sold per RO is less than an hour, you have way more problems than an unpaid MPI.
Oh, it was
way
huge.
more. You're not going to be around there long because you can't make money, period, whether you're doing a free MPI or not. And this is the biggest difference, Marshall, that I'm trying to make sure that I'm clearly enunciating here. I agree with you 100%. You should get paid for MPI. But that's only in the 80%. But if they're in the 80% shop that doesn't have the right processes, doesn't have good service leaders, doesn't have good service advisors, you're going to be losing anyway.
Well, okay, so say there's 200 dealers in the state of Georgia. Okay, right? I'm in Georgia, so say there's 200, and then 80% of those are not having high value leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is probably fairly accurate, right? And each time, Russell's a perfect example of someone who went from shop to shop to shop to find a high value leader over 10 years and never did, and left. He basically essentially left the industry, never ever having the opportunity to work for a high value leader. So what I'm getting at is he's not the exception. He's probably closer to the rule, right? So And I know that
Think
we're
about the
preaching this
numbers.
high value leader thing, but it's like, guys,
It's hard.
we have, it's like, dude, guys, we've got to accept the elephant in the room is that 80% of the technicians are not getting what we're talking about, like almost the dream world. This is the most ideal situation, but it's not. It is not. That's why I can go to Ford right now, take my service truck in to get service, give my business cards to 3 technicians, and hire 2 of them.
Yep. And this is the challenge. So think about it statistically for a second. Pure statistics, okay? If it's 80% rule, 80-20, that means 4 out of 5 dealers do not have an adequate leader. So think about this from the start of an apprentice product or apprentice program, right? They start day 1. They've not successfully chosen a high value leader. That's possible. They're 17, 18, 19, 20. They don't know shit from shit. They don't know how to tell what is and what isn't a high value leader. They don't have potentially people in their lives that can say what is. They might be able to say what isn't, but they're not necessarily able to determine that in an interview, which is why a couple weeks back or a couple months back, I asked the question, how do you identify a high value leader in an interview? What are the questions to ask? And we talked about it. Okay. They chose wrong the first time. Okay. They worked there a year, worked there 2 years, whatever. The average right now for a technician, like I said, is 18 to 24 months. Okay.
Yeah,
they worked
100%.
there for 2 years. They go to store number 2. Guess what? Statistics matter. Store 2, still a shitty leader. They might be better, might be a little bit better pay. Maybe they get paid for their MPI, but the service advisors aren't hitting 2.5, 3 hours per row. Maybe they're hitting 1.5, 1.6. So they're still not making good money. But now they're 4 years in. They go to store number 3. Okay, maybe here in Canada, store number 3, they're about to roll their license. We're at store number 3. Still not a great leader, different challenges, different personalities. Maybe it's a little bit more sold store. Maybe they're making a little bit more money. Maybe it's a little bit better team, but it's still not the good fit. We're 6 years in now. Store number 4. We're now in Canada. Let's say we're in Canada or in the States. You're now heavily trained. Maybe you stayed in the same brand within the same state or the same province. You've now got, 6 to 8 years of experience with one brand, 4 shitty leaders. Maybe they're not shit. Maybe leader number 4 is a better leader. Maybe they have empathy. Maybe they're trying, but you've got a service advisor team in the drive that sucks balls and they don't know how to sell and they don't want to play on the team. Maybe you got another toxic tech in the shop that's pulling the entire shop down, that's been there for 25 years, is best friends with the owner. And they've been, buddies since high school for the last 25 years. So they're not going anywhere. So they're 8 years in. 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
8 years in, 2 years apiece. That is the average. How many techs go from 8 years to out of the trade versus 8 years and finding a high value leader on number 5? That is where we're at right now.
Yeah,
and I haven't even talked about, you can add in the actual statistics of finding one on each decision. You could be interviewing for 5 different stores every time you move and pick the wrong one.
Yeah.
So that exponentially creates a list, which decreases the number of dealerships you can actually go to with an actual high value leader. That's why I keep saying finding a high value leader will change your life. Because those high value leaders, like we talking about, maybe they don't pay the MPI, but you're making $150,000 a year because you're selling so much fucking work because they train their advisors, they train their shop foremen, they train their apprentices, they work in teams, they send you to training, they pay for all the extra shit, they know when your anniversary is, they change lives. But like you said, it's almost at a level that it's a dream.
Dude, I can't wait for the flat rate suck shirts, dude. I'm gonna wear that Joker on every podcast, homie. Because it just blows my mind that, and the leader that we were talking about is a high value leader, right? I would never dream of working for somebody who asked me to work for free regardless of the situation. If they were like, yeah, but you're going to make 7 on the back end, you're going to make it here, you're going to maybe on the next one. Nah, fam. You
can't do that.
My kids are not maybes, right? I go to work every day and I spend 50 hours a week for my kids so that I can do better for them.
It's a tough nut to swallow, and not everybody can swallow it.
But like,
dude,
so
no way.
Zach said this when we were all together last time. Zach said, like, you know, there are times where you're gonna have to eat shit. Okay, that's the name of the game with flat rate. But there are other times where you got, as a strong service leader like Zach, he will step up to the plate and make sure that his techs are taken care of, because he knows he's building his business off the back of those technicians. His techs know that they'll go to bat for him, right? He's a high quality, high value leader. So, and that's the thing. Techs will always leave shit leadership before they leave shit pay. If you have somebody who will go to bat for you and who will fight for you, I mean, I've had I'll be flat out. I've had job offers and I've turned them down because I know for a fact that my service manager and my leading team will take care of me. They will go to bat for me. They will let me make the decisions that I need to make in order to make the shop successful. Right. So that's a huge thing.
So would you consider then working for free and gambling that the service writer is going to sell that work? Would you consider that shit pay or not?
No. So if the service advisors are doing, so this is this
you see what I'm getting at though? Like, to me, that's still shit pay. You know what I mean? If you make $25 an hour.
But if the service advisors are doing their jobs and they're taking your 10 minutes and they're turning it into a return on that RO of 2 hours, like if you take a vehicle in and you collect your 0.3 to 0.4 for an oil change, right? And you do your quick video MPI and you say, okay, you need front pads and rotors, you need rear pads and rotors, and you need an alignment. At a standard shop, that's 4.5 hours of billable work right there. And you turn around knowing that 10 minutes out of your day has just gained you another 4.5 hours on that vehicle that's on your hoist. You got all the parts in stock and you can ram out another 4 or 5 hours. Like, you've just taken a half-hour ticket and turned it into 5, right? So but again, that is all dependent upon, are all the wheels turning in the right direction? If you have somebody in there who's throwing a wrench in the whole goddamn thing, well, you need to get rid of them. You need and a lot of that comes down to, the question always is like, well, you know, I have service advisors who don't do walkarounds. Why not? Well, no, there's no it's they either come on board or there's the door, right? You have,
it's the same thing. They don't get paid for the walk. So here's the caveat here. There are some service advisors that are pure commission, not many. Some of them get like a minimum wage full-time deal, a base pay. Most of the time it ends up being whatever minimum wage in the state or province is. Some it might actually be less because they aren't required, because how it's the pay plan structured. But it's still, are you on the bus or not? The service advisors that do the proper meet and greet, that do the proper walk around, that do the proper documentation, that fill out the work orders properly, that do a consistent pitch every single time, like using Fixed Ops Marketing's videos, they're using the same consistent pitch every single time to give a consistent message to every single customer that comes in the service drive day in, day out. They'll see 16 to 27 to 40 customers a day. They do the same thing every time. Those that do the consistent every single time win. They don't get paid for the walk around, right? They don't get paid for the extra paperwork. They don't get paid they get paid when they close work. When they close extra work, especially closing extra work, CP work, they make way more money. The majority of service advisors out there are going to make on gross, ELR, hours per O, or a mix, plus perhaps CSI. Now, there's a debate whether CSI should ever be in there or not. But a consistent process through that, followed by the service advisor, is going to jack the CSI score way up. The same thing goes in the shop. If you have a consistent process on how you check out vehicles, how you do inspections, including video on your inspections, how you write your work orders, how you walk around the vehicle every single time the consistent way, you do something consistently enough over and over and over and over and over again, you'll get to a point where maybe it took you 25 minutes to do your first video MPI. The 100th time you do it, it's probably going to be 10 minutes. The 1,000th time you do it, it's probably 6 minutes. Like, the net positive. Again, I'm not disagreeing that you should get paid for an MPI. At the same time, I disagree with getting paid for it because I'd much rather have 1,000 people in the service drive because we're doing free MPIs to make 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours extra per work order because we're doing the MPIs than not doing them and charging the customers and having them come in and say, why is an MPI, which is a basic inspection, it's on the hoist for an oil change anyway. Why aren't you doing it anyway? Why am I getting charged $39.95 or $79.95 or whatever the case may be?
So
right?
because right now we're locked into a contract with CDK. That's our DMS right now. It's CDK.
Mm-hmm.
They've been talking about bringing X time in. X time doesn't play very well with CDK, and that's video MPIs, all that other stuff. The main question I got out of my text when I had started mentioning about video MPIs and everything like that is, are they going to supply cell phones? Like if we need to take a video with our phone, and I was like, no. What you do in Canada is you fill out a nice T2200 and you claim half your cell phone bill, right? It's if you're going to use your phone for work, claim it. I'll sign off on the sheet. I really don't care because it doesn't come back to the employer. It's basically the employer saying yes, the employee's using this as an expense. When you buy tools, you can do the same thing, right? When you're buying work boots, you can do the same thing. All the stuff that is outside of that, you can claim it, right? So at the end of the day, you're going to have I would say 99% of the technicians in my shop have their cell phone in their hand at some point in the middle of an RO. Doesn't matter if it's an oil change or anything like that. Phones have become such an integral part. It's like, well, okay, go ahead, take the video. Most up and coming technicians and new guys are going to be extremely proficient about it. I have actually my one of my lot attendants. He graduates high school. He just graduated high school, and I grabbed my general manager because we were getting some videos and stuff like that from a couple of our sales guys. And I grabbed my general manager. I'm like, what is this crap? What is this crap we are posting on our social media? It looks like it's made by a 4-year-old. The video is going all over the place. Nobody knows how to talk to anybody. If you're going to write a script, are you practicing before you say anything? And then I pulled up because I have my phone number in his phone, so it populated his TikTok. I didn't know this kid was going around to our dealership and taking videos of cars and putting them to music, and they were phenomenal. And I'm like, why are we not paying this kid to do our social media? Why are we not paying him to run our social media? And I showed him videos, and then next thing you know, next week he comes up to me, he goes, I need to thank you because they came to me, and now I'm going to do the majority of the videos for the dealership, like our product videos.
Yeah, that's gangster though, Richard.
And so, but that's where high value leadership comes from, right? Like to see people's skills and recognize them and be like, we need to start monopolizing on this. We need to start letting these people do what they do the best that they can, right? So,
well, that's the deal, Richard. They're going to make the TikToks and all that anyway. They're going to be making those TikToks. They're going to be doing all that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
Why can't you guys profit from it?
Well, that's exactly it.
And the one thing that many don't necessarily understand, that if you treat the dealership like a media agency, you can make money to advertise. And this is something that you have to wrap your head around for a second. I know it's a big number when you have nothing, but on YouTube, you get 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, which sounds like a really big number to begin with. But once you start growing, it doesn't look so big anymore. You then can profit from putting videos on.
Yeah.
But there's other things that happen. It can be about sales. It can be learning about the product and the things that you sell. 2, it can be about service. It can be about parts. It can be about accessories. But what else does it do? If you are putting so much content out there about your store, what else are you doing? You're hiring without paying for advertising. You need technicians in your bays? Guess what? You have 1,000 pieces of content going out a month on 10 different platforms every single day. It doesn't need to get a ton of views, but if you're posting a lot more, you're a lot more likely to go viral with something that clicks and relevant for the people that are around. You can then hire from it without actually paying for advertising. It's like, oh, this dealership really knows what 2023 is about. You've got great product. It looks like your technicians are engaged. It looks like your service advisor is engaged and your salespeople are engaged, and the comments are coming in from the community around it. It's awesome because you run it like a content or like a media agency, right? Like it's smart business in 2023.
Oh no! That's the end of another episode, Wrenches. That's okay. Another one coming next week. But do you agree with anything that the three of us said? We chewed on that for like 30 minutes, folks. Did you agree with my side? You agree that you could get paid or not get paid for the MPI, but as long as the whole process and, as Richard mentioned, all the wheels are turning in the same direction, we all win? Or do you agree with Marshall, where no matter what, no matter how, no matter which way, that as a technician, you should get paid for that MPI? Love to hear it in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. I want to hear it in the comments. I need your feedback to be able to produce more content, more relevant for you folks. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away. There'll be another one coming next week because we've already recorded it. That's awesome. No. Chop. Choppy, 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 chop, chop. Okay, let's try this again. Oh no! That's another... No.